At the beginning of 2009, the Curia of Białystok asked two eminent specialists in pathological anatomy at the Medical University of Białystok, Professor Maria Elizabeta Sobieniec-Larakowska and Professor Stanislaw Sulkowski, to analyze the samples of the blood-stained host. On January 7th, Professor Sobieniec-Larakowska went to Sokolka and took from the corporal a minuscule sample of the mysterious substance present in the host. The professors of the UMB University had underlined that, in the case of the examined host, in the sample they have found numerous biomorphological indicators typical of cardiac muscle tissue, such as, for example, the phenomenon of segmentation, namely damage to the fibers of the tissues of the cardiac muscle in the section where communicating junctions, structures characteristic of the cardiac muscle, are found, and the phenomenon of fragmentation. Some damages are visible in the form of numerous small lesions. These alterations can be observed only in fibers that are non-necrotic, that is, alive, and show signs of the fast spasms of the cardiac muscle typical of the extreme preceding death. Another important piece of evidence is the fact that the material analyzed corresponds to human cardiac muscle tissue that was the central portion of the cellular nucleus in the observed fibers, a typical characteristic of cardiac muscle fibers. Two scientists of Białystok declared, quote, "Some signs that can correspond to nodes of the contractions have been observed on the section of several fibers. Instead, during the analysis with the electron microscope, the outlines of the communicating junctions and the thin filaments myofibrils were visible," unquote. Moreover, the cardiac tissue was joined to the consecrated host in an inseparable manner. In the report of the examination performed by Professor Lodowska and Professor Sulkowski, we find written, quote, "The material resulted was sufficient for the examination. It indicated that it is cardiac muscle tissue, or at least the most similar to it among all the living tissues of an organism. And, something very important, the material analyzed is composed in all respects to cardiac muscle tissue," unquote. This affirmation is reported in the Communication of Metropolitan Curia of Białystok of October 14, 2009, concerning the Eucharistic phenomena at Sokolka. The professors discovered also that other unexplainable elements, quote, "The host remained in water for a long time and remained in the corporal for an even longer period of time. The tissue that appeared on the host would therefore have had to undergo the process of gliosis, namely the process of self-destruction by the action of the intracellular enzymes. In the material analyzed, there were no traces of these alterations observed," unquote. Another very interesting event observed consisted in that the substances found on the corporal, though slightly changed after being removed from the water because it had simply dried out from a couple of years ago, it did not change its appearance despite neither having been stabilized nor preserved at a particular temperature. This signifies that if the miracle were due to bacterium, the material would have disintegrated, crumbled, and would have changed appearance. Any microbial culture, even placed on the cleanest possible material, after a single week, appears completely different," unquote, added Professor Sulkowski.